Okay. Um, Hello. This is a follow-up to my previous video I put on YouTube. That in that video I was talking about getting the program's settings and preferences working, and I said it was working, and I come to find out I was wrong. I spent a few days fixing those problems that I came across. One of the problems that I came across was uh, your settings that you created would only last as long as the lifetime of the program, right? So the moment you change a setting, the moment that program shuts down or whatever, you reopen it, doesn't matter. Uh, that setting is gone. You have to do it again. So I decided to create a config file. So start a program up here. You can see on the right hand side. If you click on settings, uh, once I click enter, you'll see a file generate over here. I click enter, and there we go. We have a settings.config file. So this generates um, for the very first time once you enter the settings menu. Any other time after that, as long as this file is in the directory, it will not generate a new one. It already exists. So this config file has been generated by the Hallpass Hero CLI tool. It is unadvised to edit this file manually, even though you can, and I have done that. I've fiddled with it. You can break it. I've written the code a little bit better to where even if somebody does modify this manually, as long as it's not something crazy, it can still kind of work as intended. But if somebody were to change one of these values to something crazy like a string or whatever, then it'll really break it. To change the settings of the Hallpass Hero CLI tool, please use the settings menu. So we have three right now. We have runtime logging enabled, color enabled, and auto student ID generation enabled. So um, let's go ahead and look. So we can see that these have values of 1, meaning true. So if we go to our settings menu and we want to take a look at our runtime logging, we are now reading from the config file. If one of these values is true or false, which would be 0, this right here would change. And so with this, so currently it's enabled, and it's asking, would you like to disable the runtime log? And we're going to go ahead and say yes. The moment I do that, this number has changed to a 0, meaning our runtime log, which is probably very cluttered right now since I haven't cleared it in some time. Yeah. You can kind of go down to the bottom here and user has entered. Yeah, there we go. So you can kind of see now if we click something else, we shouldn't see any more logs get generated. So let's go ahead to color. Okay, and no more logs are getting generated. Um, Color is currently enabled, as you can see. This is green and this is yellow. If we go anywhere else in the program, any colors will be there. We can go ahead and disable them, and I'll bring back up the config file real quick. There we go. So that's enabled currently. We're going to disable it. Now colors are disabled. This has been set to false. So anywhere else in the program, those colors are now gone. Previously, in my previous video, I showed this off, but I only showed off a part that I kind of hard coded and I didn't even think about at the time. But now, anywhere in the program, there should be no color. And also, the runtime log should not be bringing anything new. We still have our last entry. So that's great. Next, auto student ID generation. So this is basically a kind of a trigger in the program that if this is set to true, so let's go ahead and go back to our settings menu here. Go to 4. Currently this is enabled. So if this is set to true, it will alleviate the necessity for you choosing or the user choosing to manually enter a student ID or auto generating one. Basically, there's an option you can choose to either auto generate an ID or manually create one. If this is enabled, this option is or this setting is enabled, it will just automatically do it, and certain functions will fire off rather than asking you what you want to do. Kind of shorten the process of for the user here. So we're going to keep that enabled because I actually really enjoy that when I'm debugging. And okay, so there are our settings. So now you can see there's no color or anything like that. We're going to go back to the main menu. We'll close our config file here. And now let's take a look at auto IDs. So I ran into several bugs when I was fixing this. I had to completely rewrite my a file that I had called add addstudent.c. This file initially was only used for adding a student to the database. So for example, if I were to do number 3 from the main menu, but then I found out I'd probably need to rewrite or use the same code for adding a student specifically to a roster. The same functions will be used, but it was breaking everything how I did it. So I rewrote that completely. Now I can use the same functions from this file for both different menus. I just had to set certain global triggers. So let's go ahead and create a roster. Actually, I'll show off a couple of things, a couple of small things. Um, we're going to click on number 3, which is to add a student to the database. Add a student. I'm going to do my name, Marshall, my last name. Confirm that. It's going to generate that ID. I'm sorry, I started there. It generated that ID. If I had the setting turned off, it would have asked me, would you like to auto-generate an ID or enter your own? But since it's on, it just did it for me. No questions asked. It's just going to ask me if that's satisfactory. I'm going to say yes, and it gives me that little check. There are currently no databases. I'm sorry, no rosters to add this student to. I'm going to do this again, but I'm going to create a roster. Also, let's take a look at this. So there I am. I am in my the student database. I'm going to go back to main. We're going to create a roster now because there are no rosters. For anyone who's new here, a roster is basically a classroom. It could be homeroom or it could be History 101 if you're a teacher, whatever. Doesn't matter. We're going to create a roster called main. All right, and we're going to go back to our main menu here. And I'm going to run through that same process I did a moment ago with adding a student to the database. Now, we're going to name this guy, I don't know, Jackie Chan. Confirm that. That ID gets generated automatically, no questions asked. We're going to confirm that that's an alright ID. Rosters have been found. Now it's going to ask me if I want to add this student to a roster. So it'll be added to the database, but now it's going to ask me if I want to add it to the roster. So here's the roster. Currently, there's no data in it. Would you like to add this student to a roster? I'm going to say yes. The only roster I have there is main. If I try something else, that roster does not exist, so I have to use my one option, which is main. Now it's going to add me to the Jackie Chan to the database. Should run through it. Let's refresh everything. So there's Jackie Chan in the main roster here, and he's also in the database. So I had to that was a problem. I ran into several bugs where the functions weren't really firing the way they were supposed to. I coded them. I did just wrote some ugly code for that, trying to get through it. And entries such Jackie Chan might have been added twice or 3 times, and it was just all messed up. So I'm going to show off the same functions uh, when I manage my roster. So we're going to go ahead and do number 4 here, which is to add a new student directly to a roster. We're going to choose the roster this time first. Choose main. And now we're going to run through. We're going to do manual entry, and we're going to just make up a person. We'll do Timmy, and we'll do Turner. That auto-generated ID. Easy day. Confirm yes. And there we go. Been added to main. And because they're added to a roster, they have to be in the database. You cannot have the best of both worlds, or rather, you have to have the best of both worlds. If a student's in a roster, they have to be in the database. And but they can be in the database without being in a roster, if that makes sense. For example, myself is not in a roster, my name. So yeah, I've fixed a bunch of little bugs here and there. I cleaned my code up. I was just writing ugly code trying to get through the project, but there's no point in doing that. It just broke everything, and I had to spend hours and hours and hours refactoring. So I think I mean, there's a few smaller details that I've put in there, but oh, also there is one more. Sorry, I completely forgot about this. I am now in the process of finally working on the help menu. It's the help documentation in the program. Currently, I only have from the main menu's help documentation, but there will be one for option 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. So if you click on 8 from the main menu, oh, oh, sorry, not in the right menu. There we go. Now if we click on 6 from the main menu, there we go. Completely was in the wrong menu. So it'll read from a file that I've written out some documentation for, and it'll kind of explain to you how certain things work. I don't want to overload people, but I also want to make it super, I want to make it detailed enough and easy to understand. So uh, I have a ticket on the repo for anybody who's interested in contributing. I would love some people to help write the documentation out for this, to help users out. And yeah, I'm gonna keep working on this, and I mean, this has gone longer than I wanted it to, the video and this project, but it is what it is. So thank you for watching. I'm gonna upload this one here in a second, and that's it. Peace.